right. Well, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're streaming from. We have guests here from Hawaii, from Colorado, California, and of course here in frigid central Indiana. So welcome to the Marshall Major Taylor mural presentation event that's administered by Arts Council of Indianapolis. I'm Anthony Bridgman. I'm one of the members of the Major Taylor Coalition. Thank you for being here with us. It is very gratifying to be on this call today, as it's been almost 4 years since Dan Lee, a former pro cyclist and currently the PR manager for SRAM and Zip, reached out to me on LinkedIn to discuss how Indianapolis could #honor Major Taylor with a mural in downtown Indianapolis. Now, I will admit that I knew about Major Taylor. We have the Major Taylor Velodrome here in Indianapolis, and I'd been out to bike races there. But it wasn't until Dan shared books about Taylor with me, and he waxed poetic about Taylor's inspirational life journey, that I fell in love with this idea and pledged to do what I could to make it a reality here in Indianapolis, Marshall Taylor's hometown. A hometown, mind you, that didn't embrace him during his rise to stardom as a world champion cyclist. So it's really great to do a 180 and kind of have a redo, so to speak. Following that time, Dan and I had met. We connected with Julia Moore, who's the public art director at the Arts Council of Indianapolis. And she was on board with the project from the start. But she cautioned us to be patient, as these types of projects usually take 3 to 4 years to come to fruition. And she wasn't lying. We're here today, almost 4 years later. So through this journey to #honor Major Taylor, a great number of allies have joined the effort with Dan, Julia, and I, including Kisha Tandy, who's the curator at the Indiana State Museum. And, outside of her role as curator, she's specific, all things Major Taylor. So she's been a huge asset to have on board. Doug Day, community and neighborhood leader, who's just been a fantastic force of energy in this project. Lorenzo Giple, who is an architect and a community leader, has been really a stalwart in this effort as well. And we're pleased beyond words of the support for this effort from Indianapolis Mayor Joe Hogsett, Council Chairman Vop Osley, the Indianapolis Bicentennial Commission, the Indianapolis Historic Preservation Commission, Barnes and Thornburg, whose building is hosting the mural itself, the Glick Philanthropies, the Central Indiana Bicycling Association Foundation, SRAM, and all donors of the GoFundMe campaign to help support this mural. So again, beyond words, we really thank everybody for stepping up and being part of this great effort. And I'm really excited to see the designs and hear from the artists themselves, and also the really fantastic array of panelists that we have that'll go on and discuss each of the designs after the artists. So stay tuned. So we really have a great hour in store. So now I want to turn to Julia, who will introduce our artists. Julia?
Thank you, Anthony. Can we get the next slide, Kate? My name is Julia Moore. I am the Director of Public Art at the Arts Council of Indianapolis, and I have the honor of managing the Legends Mural Program and working with community stakeholder groups like the Major Taylor Coalition on their murals. As Anthony mentioned, the process of developing the Taylor mural has been going on for nearly 4 years. It's been a long and exciting road to get here. When we announced the entire Legends mural program in September, we also announced an open roster for artists who are interested in creating any of the Legends murals. And to find the artists for the Major Taylor mural, we reviewed all 54 artists who had applied to that roster by November 8th to find the 3 finalist artists who meet today. The review panel was looking for artists with great technical skills in portraiture, as well as an individual style that would create the impression of Taylor that the mural is meant to convey. And I hope you will agree that these artists whose past work you'll get a little taste of, just as the panel saw it, have both the skill and the style to paint the first Legends mural of Marshall Major Taylor. So without any more delay, let me introduce the first artist, Rafael Blanco. Next slide, please. Rafael is a native of Alicante, Spain, and he trained as a classical painter. Since 2014, he has combined his studio practice with large-scale public murals, whose style is informed by European street art. He's painted murals across the country and has exhibited internationally. Currently, he is an assistant professor at Elmhurst University in the Chicago area, where he teaches drawing, painting, and art history. He lives in Aurora, Illinois. And Rafael, tell us about your work and your design concept.
Hi, Julia. Thank you for having me. It is truly an honor to be part of this project. So first of all, as Julia was saying, also, Kate, can you change the slide, please? Thank you. As he was saying, I was classically trained, so which means that I actually went to school to paint in the studio. And it wasn't until I did my MFA that I became interested in public art. I think public art has an amazing potential to transform, to beautify, and to revive an area. And this is one of the reasons why I have been transitioning and why the past years I just been focusing on public art. Also, the theme of diversity has become my theme and also my purpose through my work, not only because obviously it is really essential for us nowadays, but also because it's also personal for me as well. I am from Spain, my wife is from Mexico, our kids are from here. So we live in a household that we have to deal with diversity for the good and for the bad. And again, I think my work, I want to reflect that in my work. So this is an example of a before and after that I did. So last year at the University of Nevada, Reno, and I was asked to paint a mural about diversity. And I think my point is that not everyone needs to like the work, but I think most of the people will appreciate and be able to compare both worlds. I think most of the people are going to agree that that someone is trying to improve the city, someone is trying to take care of the world, and hopefully this will inspire many people around the city. So Kate, the next slide, please. Thank you. There are 2 works that are fairly related to to this legend portrait. This is a commission that I did for the city of Roseville in California in 2019. And I wanted to celebrate the life of Dorothea Lange. And Dorothea Lange was a well-known photographer for capturing the harsh lives of immigrants in the 1940s, but she never came to fame, or she was never as famous as she should have been, mainly because she was a woman. So kind of the whole point of this mural was to celebrate, to educate, and to motivate people to know more about her. Okay, thank you, Kate. Next. This is a mural that I just recently finished in November in the city of Frederick, and it is celebrating the life and work of Lester Bowie. Lester Bowie was a jazz well-known, renowned musician. That he was actually born in Frederick. I think the site-specific aspect of art, of public art, it is really special because making this type of portraits, making this type of art in the cities that they have worked on, or like the cities that that they were born make it so much more special, not only for the artwork, but also for the people that live in the city, that these are part of the identities and like also part of their history. Thank you, Kate. So I think the artist and like hopefully Shawn and Alchemy like agree with me, but I think we had a difficult task, and there are so many, so there are not many photos of Major Taylor in out there, especially because he was around in the early 1900s. So camera was not as accessible as today, and just the few photos that I could find were not in motion because they didn't have the means to actually photograph while in movement. So I have created two designs that are working mainly with two different photographs, and like this is the first one where we have Major Taylor that is cycling. I wanted to convey color in order to demand the viewer attention. I'm interested in working with a color scheme that is analogous, where all the colors are next to each other in the color wheel, to create some harmony and also to create some movement. I think the whole point for me was, how can I create these photographs that were taken with no movement? How can I manipulate? How can I transform them into designs that are going to be active and that hopefully they seem that they are moving. Also, I have tilted the figure and the bicycle just to be able to activate more the composition. And lastly, for this one, I added the drops. I added the background again just to make more of an active composition and more and also more a dynamic negative space. Thank you, Kate. So this is the second version of the first design, and all of the above, it is what I was trying to convey. But also in this one with the American flag, I wanted to celebrate that he was not only left from Indianapolis, but he was from the United States. We all, well, hopefully many of us know that he had to face a lot of racism. He had to face a lot of injustice because of the color of his skin. But he never, that I know of, he never went against other people. He rose to the top, even though he was not helped, and even though he was literally kicked out of many competitions. So he was a true hero, and in my opinion, he was a true American, and that is the whole thing that I was trying to portray with this design. Thank you, Kate. So the third one of the first photograph, and like the first design, I was trying to convey more of the nostalgic. I wanted to evoke the feelings of nostalgia of the past, and also to to bring his skin color forward, giving a little bit more importance to his skin. Also, the text of it is a quote by him that says, "Modesty should be typical of the success of a champion." I wanted to bring text as a secondary focal point. I don't want the viewers to look at this like right away. I want the viewers to look at the figure, like to look at the composition, and then finding out about a quote about Taylor, just to know more about him and about his persona. Thank you, Kate. All right, so this is the second design with a second photograph. Again, I was trying to convey movement, but in this one especially, I was trying to make the viewer feel that Major Taylor is cycling fast through a sunset where he can feel the wind and and hopefully the viewer will be able to also feel, even with their eyes. Thank you, Kate. So the second one, it is similar to my first one. It is the same color scheme with the same splashes. I just wanted to play around to see whether that color scheme will work. And I think it's working well enough, because again, it's conveying that that movement that I was trying to go. And also, like, some of the things that I like about this photograph, it is his gaze. He is looking into the street, and so people that are going to be passing through the street are going to be engaged with the subject. Okay, thank you, Kate. And the last one, it is the same as the one that I just showed you, but just with the sepia tone. And again, I just wanted to go back, like, to that nostalgia, and like to bring back the importance of his color. Also, the text, so the text could be taken out in any of the proposals. Thank you, Kate. And thank you, Julia.
All right, thank you, Rafael. Kate, can you go to the next slide, please? The next artist up is Shawn Michael Warren. Shawn was born in Chicago, Illinois. He received his BFA at the American Academy of Art in Chicago and studied at the Florence Academy of Art in Florence, Italy. In addition to expert installations of portrait murals, his intensely figurative work has been exhibited widely, and he has appeared in several publications. Shawn's paintings are reflections of the experiences and narratives surrounding Black history and culture, and bring attention and awareness to events and individuals that have affected and shaped cultures and civilizations throughout the world. He lives in Harvey, Illinois. Shawn, let's hear about your work and your concept.
Thank you, Julia. Hello, everybody. So I wanted to dive right in. Mainly, I am a fine artist, and I've happened to come across public art and doing murals more so by chance a few years ago. And since then, it's something that's really grown into a standard practice for what I do. So a lot of my work is narrative based, but for my murals, they focus on more of the individual and the essence of that individual. So this particular portrait was done 3 years ago. It was actually just a 3-year anniversary of the completion of this. It was of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and it was commissioned by Covered California in Los Angeles, and it's actually at Charles Drew University for Medicine and Science. For this particular mural, we wanted to portray not only King, but more so the quote that's next to the mural. And because it's a medical campus, and because Covered California deals with getting access to Medicare and Medicaid, we wanted to incorporate a quote that dealt with challenging injustices in healthcare. So this mural was actually, I want to say, a 2.5-week process, but mainly my murals are of great individuals in black and white. I think there's a timelessness to that monochrome color. But mainly for me, I want to capture the person's essence as well as their likeness. Next slide, please. This was one of my more recent murals that I completed in Chicago, Illinois, near the downtown area. This was actually a collaborative effort between myself and 4 other artists. This is considered Chicago's largest mural as of now, and it was a portrait mural, well, more so kind of like this woven mural commemorating Oprah Winfrey. And the area that it's in, it's called West Loop, and it was a really big, it's become a really big area, but I want to say maybe 20 years ago or so, that is where Oprah's studio was. This is where she was for her, for the duration of her talk show. And since then, since the end of her show, West Loop has become one of the more lively places to be in the Chicagoland area as of late. So this was a commemorative mural. This was a very, very large effort, and it took months to even plan this. But yeah, it was a very, very different mural for me because I've never collaborated with muralists before. So there were a lot of firsts in this, and I think the mural, turned out, fairly, fairly well, and it's been well received by the public. Next slide. This is another mural that I completed earlier in 2020, and this was a collaborative effort between myself and another artist that goes by the name of Static. This was commissioned by our local electric power company called ComEd, and this was to honor both, past figures in the Bronzeville community in Chicago, and also focus on issues surrounding climate change and finding alternative clean methods of energy usage in the Chicagoland area. So a lot of these figures, some of which are relative to Chicago. As you can see, there's Katherine Johnson at the bottom. They wanted to include her because she was a really big pioneer for NASA. Some would even consider that she saved NASA. So this was more of a arts, cultural, literature, and scientific project that was put together. Next slide. This is one of my more personally favorite murals. This is of Dr. Maya Angelou. This was also in Los Angeles, California at the Dr. Maya Angelou High School. We assembled this project 2 years ago for the Maya Angelou Mural Festival. It was created by Branded Arts, which is a arts organization that operates out of the California area. For this particular mural, we wanted to have a young portrait of Maya and an older portrait of Maya. Shepard Fairey was commissioned to do the younger portrait, and I, of course, I did the more older version of Dr. Maya Angelou. What you see here is pretty much my practice when it comes to doing murals. My murals aren't always done on site, and they're done on a, what you see being installed on the wall is a fabric. It's a parachute cloth. I usually draw and paint on that in studio, and then I install it later on. For this one, this was an individual effort. I had to do it all myself, which is a very laborious process. But for this mural, what I would do is I would scale the wall. I would actually measure the length and width, and then I would actually cut these individual pieces of fabric to a certain size that it accurately adds up to the length and width of the wall that it's going on. And I purpose it on with a gel. And this gel is supposed to actually hold the mural in place. And when treated properly, when installed properly, this can last for some years. I was actually taught this technique by a renowned muralist by the name of Kent Twitchell. And this process is actually standard for a lot of artists in the California area. So this has become more of a godsend for me, because working in Chicago, I'm always at the mercy of weather. So this allows me to work indoors, and I'm protected from the elements. The painting is protected from the elements. I don't have to stop and be interrupted by rain or by snow or by any type of inclement weather or random acts of God, so to speak. So this is the practice I actually intend to use for this mural if selected. So this is kind of like an idea of how that works. So you kind of see the middle of it towards the end, and then the completed version. Next slide. So like I said before, I'm more of a narrative-based artist. This is one such example of a lot of my pieces deal with not only representing the underrepresented, but also narratives that deal with the socio-political and environmental and economical issues that we're dealing with in society. This piece I did 4 years ago. It's titled Troubled Waters. It is an 8-foot by 18-foot pencil drawing. And this actually deals with the issue of water contamination in America. I took multiple narratives surrounding that particular subject, from the Flint water crisis to the protests that were taking place in Standing Rock against the Keystone pipeline, and the oil spill that took place in the Gulf some years ago. So basically, this piece is more of a foretelling of what's to come if America doesn't really do anything to get its act together, have our clean water preserved. Next slide. So for my concepts, I wanted to deal more narrative based. This particular portrait. It's a triple portrait. So you have Major Taylor in 3 various stages of his life. You have the young figure, and then you have when he's a little older, and then at the bottom where he's racing. It's more of it represents him after his 2-year hiatus from the sport of cycling. I did want to depict that he was fast, so of course the speed lines there are representative of that. The gear and the bicycle wheel are actually representative of his 2 biggest victories. The World Championship in 1899 and also the U.S. Sprint Championship in 1900. Since I couldn't find any images of what the medals actually look like, that's kind of a stand-in for what that represents. So that is my first concept. And in terms of a quote, I did think about adding that. I didn't include it in the concept, and I kind of would like to hear feedback on what the public thinks about having a quote included. One was, in a word, I was a pioneer, and therefore I had to blaze my own trail. The other was, I pray they carry on in spite of that dreadful monster prejudice, and with patience, courage, fortitude, and perseverance, achieve success for themselves. So yeah, that's something that I've gone back and forth with, but I think it would be important to include it. Next slide. This is my second concept. It's a simple, basically a simple in-your-face type of portrait. It's kind of in line with the past portraits I've done, but I like the stoic nature of Major Taylor, and based on things that I've read and studied, he seemed very unwavering. He was very poised despite his issues with dealing with racism and prejudice. I think it's important to convey that, to convey strength, despite the many obstacles that he dealt with in a time when racism and prejudice was extreme. Next slide. This is somewhat elements of the first concept, but a little different. I did want to show that portrait. I think that's a very, that gaze of his, I think is very, very, very powerful. So taking that, but also having him racing with the speed lines, and then him in one of his matches. It's kind of the elements of the first concept, but kind of switched around a little bit. The main thing I want to portray was that, number one, of course, he was the fastest cyclist in the world, but also he was a very strong and very stoic person, and a very quote-oriented person, and someone that persevered and was able to really navigate through a global sport despite all the challenges and obstacles that he faced consistently. So these are my 3 concepts, and if I were to pick one, like I would say the first one would be my favorite, but these were the top 3 for me. And I think capturing it in black and white, I think Rafael mentioned nostalgia, and I think that's a very good point to make. I think there's a timelessness when it's monochrome. So those are my concepts, and I appreciate you all for the time.
Thank you, Shawn. Now let's have the next slide, and let's hear from Michael Jordan, who goes by the name of Alchemy. Alchemy lives here in Indianapolis and is a published writer and poet, as well as a painter. He has completed over 40 murals, including several for the Arts Council, as well as painting the multi-story Mari Evans portrait mural in downtown Indianapolis as a collaboration with Big Car and Riley Area Development Corporation. Alchemy's work has been part of both group and solo exhibitions, both locally and throughout the Midwest. He has created works of portraiture, surrealism, and narrative storytelling, and his versatility is in demand all over the city. Alchemy, go ahead when you're ready. Oops, did we not have him? Did we lose him?
He's just muted.
Oh, okay.
Oh, here it is. Okay.
There you go.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I'm thankful for this opportunity. As I was saying, you couldn't hear me. I have been doing artwork for many years. I've never done anything else. I've always done artwork, never worked. I like this opportunity because it reminds me a lot of myself in the determination. My father was a veteran. I'm partial to that aspect. He was a disabled veteran. He was released from the service, a morphine addict. So my father was a heroin addict all my life. I grew up in a neighborhood where there were plenty of heroin addicts, gun shooting. Goodness, when I was 10 years old, right next door, we lived next door to a tavern where a guy was shot and killed that night. My brother was walking and bullets flew past his head. I wind up going to juvenile center, you name it, wind up in 19 in prison. I was released from prison on April 16th, 1973, where I became an artist. Fortunately, when I went to prison, I met an artist who did painting, and I'd never before met a painter. He taught me everything he knew, left prison and never painted since, and I've been painting ever since. I came out of prison, slept in the top of a garage and painted, ate cereal 3 times a day. Refused to eat anything else because it was economically not feasible. And that's basically how I got my start at doing artwork. My first year out of prison, I did a mural on a guy's wall, and that got me started doing murals. I painted murals everywhere, including Martin University, 2 at Martin University, many at the Boys and Girl Club. I donated 32 pictures to the Addicts Museum of History. This thing with the Maury Evans that you see right here was a mural that Maury Evans asked me to do after someone else did a mock-up and she did not like it. And she said, what about that guy and Tony Rafford told her my name. And she said, yeah, that's the one I want. It just so happened that Miss Evans went to the church where my studio was. So it was very easy for me to talk to her, which I always admired her poetry. I went by her house and talked to Miss Evans, and she told me she was having dreams of making the transition, passing. The big car is the one who had me do the mural, commissioned me to do this mural. And they, at that time, it was in 2015 when they came to me, they didn't have the money. And so Miss Evans, since she was having the dreams of passing, I took and did a mock-up mural, 30 by 40, of the building with cars on the lot. And I donated to her, which made her feel a lot better. The following year, Big Car got the money. And by the time we got to do the mural was in April. And I'm putting the finishing touches on the mural. And someone yelled up and said, hey, Miss Evans is down here. I looked down there and saw her, and there she was. And it just filled me with joy. I let the lift down and went down to speak to her, and come to find out that day, April 16th was her birthday. We did not plan that. We didn't know. But I finished the mural on her birthday, and that was her last birthday. She made the transition the following January. So that mural meant a lot to me, a great deal to me, painting that. When I do my murals, I tend to, I don't use anything. To me, less is more. I'm very simple with my approach. I look at the wall and I go up there and I draw it out and then paint it. I took the mural, the lift, went up to the top where the window was, put her head in there and just drew everything straight down and painted in. Took me approximately 2 weeks to do that one, that particular one. Every mural I do is pretty much the same. I go straight on the wall. I use the best paint I can get, and I just draw it out and execute it. With Major Taylor, He is such an inspiration. This guy, the things that he did and the things that he was faced with, a lot of determination. It's like nothing stopped him. He was so humble and dedicated to what he did. I'm partial to the veterans. I'm a member with the American Legions. My best friend is like a captain there, so I attend things involving him all the time. With this mural here, I have his names at the top, as you can see. It's that this picture is the first picture I've ever seen of him. It's probably the most popular picture. That's why I used it. I like the idea that he's coming straight at you. You can see, look him in the eye and see his determination. I sketched that out and then took and put the letters behind it. The letters are to be in gold, 3D, like the letters that are on the uniform of a soldier. That is the way that I would really do them. They're meant to be in gold and 3D with the 3D effect of gold. The flag in the background, of course, depicting the foundation of his beliefs and his sincerity, because he was dedicated. As you know, he started practicing young on a bicycle after he got it for a gift, and he went by the name of Major Taylor because he wore a uniform all the time. They nicknamed him that, Major Taylor, and it stuck. So that's the reason why I put his name was Marshall Major Taylor, and or Marshall Taylor, and the Major was stuck in as a middle name. So, but I really love this picture because I like the way he's coming forth straight at you, and it's very simple. Direct approach, like he was in life. He believed in practicing his skill, putting it to work, and making it work for him no matter what. Persevering everything, all storms. I love that man, and I love the fact that he was from Indianapolis. Really, I look forward to being able to do that. That would be wonderful. And thank you.
Thank you, Michael. At this point, I am going to toss it back to Anthony to introduce our distinguished panel of Taylor experts, and then I will facilitate their conversation. Go ahead, Anthony.
Hey, thank you, Julia. Really want to thank this esteemed panel of folks here. We'll start off with Rasan Bahati. Rasan is a world-class cyclist and champion for children. Rasan was raised in Compton, California, and studied African American history and diaspora studies at Indiana University here in Bloomington, Indiana. So he's a 10-time US champion professional cyclist who has represented the US at 3 world championships. In 2000, at the age of 17, he won the Elite USCF National Criterium Championships, the first person to accomplish it as a junior racer. He currently rides in and manages his own cycling team, Bahati Foundation Elite Cycling Team. He has previously raced for some of America's best teams, including the Skills Pista Palace, Rock Racing Pro Cycling, TIAA Cref Pro Cycling, McGuire Real Estate Pro Cycling, Saturn Pro Cycling, and Mercury Pro Cycling. In 2011, Bahati was honored with a special dedication at the 29th El Tour de Tucson. Alongside his job with Zwift virtual training app, Rasan runs the Bahati Foundation, which inspires and encourages youth to rise above their current circumstances through education, music, and sports. Thank you, Rasan, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Anthony.
Peter Joffrey Nye is our next panelist. Peter has worked as a prize-winning author, journalist, and magazine editor in Washington, D.C. He is the author of several books, including the revised and updated second edition of Hearts of Lions, The History of American Bicycle Racing. It's a great book. I had the opportunity to read that. And now in development for a documentary. That's fantastic. He has contributed to the Washington Post, USA Today, Sports Illustrated, Humanities Magazine, and other publications. Peter began his career as a police reporter for the South Bend Tribune. He holds a BS from Ball State University in journalism and political science, did graduate studies in economics at the London School of Economics, and holds an MFA in creative nonfiction from Gucha College. He lives with his wife, Valerie, and 2 dogs in Oak Harbor, Washington. And finally, and especially last but not least, Karen Brown Donovan. Karen has been directly involved in managing the legacy of American cyclist Marshall Major Taylor for over 20 years. She is especially close to her grandmother, Sydney Taylor Brown, Marshall Taylor's only child. Through frequent visits and hours of stories told to her directly by her grandmother, Karen Brown Donovan considers it an honor to protect and preserve the legacy of her great-grandfather. She is frequently invited as a guest speaker to events that promote Major's achievements and his memory. Karen grew up in a military family and married a career military officer, living all over the United States and in Europe. She's a graduate of the University of Virginia with a Bachelor of Arts in Communications, and lives in Hawaii and is coming to us from Hawaii. So we really appreciate her getting up early, as well as Rasan getting up early out there in California to join us this morning. So thank you again to all the panelists, and I will turn it over to Julia, who will be moderating this session.
Thank you, and welcome to everybody. So the first question I'd like to pose to you, and anyone can answer, just unmute your mic and pop up, is can you comment on how the various proposed designs confirm or demonstrate what you know about Taylor and what you feel about Taylor? Anyone can talk.
Yes. Like I said,
I'm sorry, Michael, these are for the 3 panelists,
Okay.
Rasan, Peter, and Karen.
I heard anyone.
Yes, no, Rasan, Peter, and Karen.
Yes, ma'am.
Julia,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Absolutely,
Yes.
go ahead.
Yes, hi. In response to that question, firstly, I'd like to thank everybody who submitted art for this amazing project. But something that really struck me as I was looking at all of the submissions is how well the fact that they captured Major's determination in every one of those designs. That's what struck me.
This is Rasan. I too want to say thank you and congrats to everyone who made a submission. It's so funny that just last night I made a quick errand, and as I sat at the light, there's a liquor store to the right, and I see a picture of Major Taylor inside of a liquor store. And I told my wife, I said, look, there's a picture of Major. And of course it was in connection to the Hennessy thing, but it was just kind of surreal to see, because I had never seen anything just kind of pop up out of the blue like that. So with the murals, I was leaning a lot and really feeling Shawn's murals, because it was telling more of a story to me, which I think Major has he was such a big character, and went through so much, and like, if you could tell that through a painting, it really touches me in a really soft spot. So all of them are amazing and awesome, but as a personal one, like having that narrative and really telling that story was amazing.
Hi, Peter. Do you have any comment? How do the various mural designs square with what you know and feel about Major Taylor? There he goes.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
We can now.
Okay, fine. Thank you. I'm really impressed. You guys have real mojo here. This is a great project, and I also really appreciated hearing the artists comment on what they saw and what they were portraying. These are very bright people, and I'm excited that Major Taylor is being represented this way. I thought that the American flag with Major Taylor superimposed on the American flag was very strong. It really conveys the image of, this is an athlete who is representing the United States. But they're all great, and I appreciate the fact that people in Indianapolis are honoring Major Taylor. And I really do appreciate also public art. It's just wonderful. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. So the next question that I have for you is, did any of the designs bring out something new, something that you hadn't thought about for a while or hadn't had the opportunity to reflect on, or something about Taylor that is, kind of something that people wouldn't necessarily think of, but you went, oh yeah, that's definitely something that the mural captured.
That's a good question.
Oh, go ahead, Peter.
No, Karen, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I have to agree with something that Rasan said. When I thought all of the, all of the imagery would make for a beautiful mural, but something that really jumped out at me was Shawn's use of kind of the mini collage of Major, very young and hopeful, followed by images of him being more confident and successful. And that kind of reminded me of, I don't know, a mini timeline, if you will, of his life. And I was really struck by it, as well as everyone's use of some form of nostalgia. So that's kind of what jumped out at me.
Yeah, I'll hop in here. This is Rasan. I think I really did enjoy the idea of Rafael using the colors when he articulated like he wanted to see that movement because Major was so fast. So that was a different perspective. I had never really heard anyone speak of a painting in that manner. So that was, in my opinion, super brilliant. And then on the last one, I do like that it was just him straight on, and I don't want to assume that everyone within Indianapolis know who Major Taylor was, but I think it's such a powerful photo that perhaps if you don't know, you would question, who is that figure? You know what I mean? Without doing too much. So yeah, again, 3 brilliant murals, and but I again going back to Rafael with the colors and the notion of making it, appear to be moving, I thought was brilliant.
And I appreciated the straight on image on the of Major Taylor superimposed on the American flag of Alchemy's image, especially, well, the shallow drop handlebars on the bicycle provide a time note because they're very dated, and so that sets the photo at about 1900. Early days of the development of the bicycle, and also the position of riders. But that one stuck out at me, impressed me. I thought it was more dynamic. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I really love that perspective from you as a historian, that the design of the bicycle really kind of is as important because it does set its time frame again. And that is something new that, you know, I don't know that people really notice. So what characteristics about Taylor do you personally value most, and how do you think the designs address that? I think we kind of touched on this a little bit, but can you go into a little bit more detail?
I would like to jump in. Go ahead.
Go ahead,
Sharon,
Peter.
go ahead.
I want you to start that. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I've read his autobiography a few times, and I've read other books on Major Taylor, and they're all wonderful. But what really struck me about him was his class. It was a very terrible time. The Supreme Court decision of Plessy versus Ferguson of 1896 sounds very academic, but basically it froze in place the fact that whites were supreme, and that was not disputed. And Taylor, in his autobiography, had a chance to give some shots at people who had done harmful things to him, but he doesn't. And he upheld the best values of good sportsmen. That's what shines through all his life. I've looked at his life from many angles and talked with a lot of people. For Hearts of Lions, I interviewed two men who actually knew him. One lent Taylor a bicycle for the Old Timers race in 1917, and they all spoke very highly of him. Thank you.
Yes, and I will kind of echo what Peter just said. You know, there's no question that Major Taylor was a remarkable athlete, had remarkable athletic skills. But I think of my father. My father used to have this way of saying, you know, whenever anybody faced any kind of adversity, that people needed to fight their own dragons. And I can't help but think of Major Taylor doing that and so much more. And I really admire the fact that Major set goals for himself and he didn't back down. He had to have had an extraordinary ability to block hate from his life, hate that was directed at him much of the time. And I consider him a true gentleman. And I believe he had the highest levels of integrity. So in addition to all of his wonderful athletic abilities, I feel those were some of his best character traits.
Thank you. Ruslan, do you have a comment?
No, I mean, I think they both kind of hit the nail on the head there, or the hammer on the head, because what I like most about what I know about Major Taylor is the last thing that Karen said, was his integrity. Through my adventures and journey through sports, I've dealt with my fair share of racism and whatnot, and I always had to take a step back and literally say to myself, what would Major do? And I already knew what he would do. And at times it was hard, and you scratch your head like, how in the heck did he just walk away and continue to be a gentleman and have integrity in this situation? And that really helped shape how I moved through the sport of cycling, even at the height of my career, when I was what I like to call the only raisin in milk. So yeah, if that mural that could kind of tell that story of this gentleman of a man who was ferocious on a bike, because oftentimes those two things don't go hand in hand in sport, you know. I think that's the one that's going to be the home run for me.
That is great. And, you know, I thank all three of you for your comments. At this point, I'd like to open it up to anyone in our audience who is watching. Please use the Q&A feature on your screen if you're on Zoom, or if you're watching the live stream on Facebook, please use the comment section. And we will go ahead and take audience questions for any of our artists or any of our panelists. I'm not Not seeing any come through, but I have a question. So if you would say one thing that you hope people will learn from seeing a portrait mural, I mean, and knowing things about portraiture, knowing things about Taylor, and these are for our panelists, and also from for our artists, what's the one takeaway that you would like to see happen? And anyone can just pop up here, any of our artists or panelists.
Rasan here. I hope that it inspires all. You know, this is a personality that transcended like so many different things within his lifetime. So I found the sport of cycling because someone exposed it to me, and I think this mural could be this, even though it's stationary, it still could be this movement of sort. So yeah, if it inspires and raises awareness and bring people to this beautiful sport of cycling, I think it's amazing.
Yes, and I have to agree with you. I think that inspiration is at the key to anybody that sees it. If somebody sees the mural who's already familiar with Major's story, then they're probably going to say, oh, this is wonderful. You know, it's great that it's in his hometown. And if someone sees it who does not know who Major Taylor is, that's the perfect word. They're all done so beautifully, and they're meant to inspire. They're meant to, have people wonder who he was, what he did, and hopefully go and read a book or do research. And most importantly, spread the word. Spread the word. And, in my mind, I would love to see more younger generations learn about Major Taylor. And this is going to do nothing but help that.
Thank you. I do see a question in the chat that says about the name of the part of the mural. For those artists who did not include the Major Taylor's name, is that something that you would consider or that you'd be willing to think about? Or if that's something that you definitely didn't include for a reason, can you comment on that?
It can be something I can include. Normally with murals, for me, a placard is included next to the mural. It's purpose next to it. So their name and maybe a write-up, their year, the date of birth, their passing, just so that's one way. But I think a name could be included. It looks maybe towards the bottom, more closer to eye level, maybe like a cross. It could be included there. I do want it to be, if I were to do it, I definitely would like for it to be a little more subtle and not take away from the actual image itself, the narrative. So yeah, those are two options that I definitely can consider doing.
Yeah, so for me, I think it's a similar thing. I think, Julia, I think you mentioned that there's going to be a plaque, right?
Yes, there will be.
So there is also the option of having his name under the quote. And yeah, that's something that is easy to do.
Thank you. We do have another question for the artist, or for Shawn Warren specifically. It says that the question is that the image of Major Taylor on the bike, the face looks like it's silver or faded. And is that deliberate, or is that something that is just an artifact of the photograph that you presented?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, that's more from the photograph. It's actually going to be pretty clear if it were to be, purposed on the wall. So it won't be faded at all.
All right, thank you. We do have a couple more questions, but we're just about at the end of our time. Can we go to the next slide, please, Kate? We'll try to get those questions elsewhere. So at this point, I wanted to let everybody that's watching know that, hopefully you've learned a lot, and hopefully you've had the chance to consider the possibilities of public portraiture. But now it's your turn. You have the opportunity to tell us what you think about the design proposals that you've heard today. You can visit the website address that you see on the screen. You can take some time to review the full proposals. There are written proposals there that you can check out. And then there's a form on the page that you can use to rate the 3 concepts. And then if you like, you can give us some narrative comments. You can ask us questions. There are real people at the other end of that form, and we will connect with you. You also have a chance on that form to sign up for the Arts Council or the Major Taylor Coalition mailing list to stay informed about the project. We're keeping the comments open until the end of February, and everything that you post and everything that you say, that you choose to say, will absolutely be taken into consideration as we evaluate the concepts. So at this point, I'm going to kick it back to Anthony to close us out. And the final slide, please, Kate.
Great. Yeah, thanks again, everyone, for being here. It's really tremendous. I really love, as an aside, I love all of the Indiana connections, the Taylor connections, especially between all of the panelists. I think that's just such a bit of kismet that, you know, everyone is connected in some way to the state. It's, you know, really, really fantastic. So we've got another big event coming up here. It's a really fantastic book written by Michael Cranish, The World's Fastest Man is the title of the book, The Extraordinary Life of Cyclist Major Taylor, America's First Black Sports Hero. So that's a great read. And Michael, you know, has just really done a fantastic job with kind of weaving what was all happening in America at that time when Marshall was, you know, breaking all these records and, you know, being this gentleman sportsman, you know, at a time when, you know, he was having people physically attack him, you know, after, you know, he beat them in bike races. And the book really does draw some incredible parallels, which, you know, Michael didn't really know at the time was going to be the case, but it really incredible parallels with things that we're kind of dealing with in America today. So April 20th, 6:30, there will be a kind of another segment like this on Facebook or Zoom. And this talk about the book will be sponsored by the Indianapolis Public Library's Center for Black Literature and Culture. So really looking forward to that event, and we welcome all of you to join us for that. I just want to make a quick plug for Kisha Tandy. So hopefully everyone will also be waiting with bated breath for a Marshall Major Taylor exhibit that will be premiering in 2022 at our Indiana State Museum. So, so we've got, you know, a lot of great things that are all Taylor related that'll be coming out here pretty soon, and very excited that we, you know, can hashtag honor Major Taylor in this way. So lots of great platitudes. I love Karen's mention of fighting our own dragons, as Marshall, you know, had to do so often in his life. I love that spirit of integrity and being a sportsman and a gentleman that Peter mentioned. And I love Rasan, you know, when he's faced with a lot of ignorance, you know, when he's out there on the bike, just, you know, killing folks in races, you know, what would Major do? You know, and I think that's just really profound, you know, and something that we could all take as inspiration. What would Major do? So I'll sign off, but I just, again, thanks for joining in. And Julia, this is being recorded live on Facebook. So if folks have missed any portion of this, I believe you can jump on the Arts Council of Indianapolis Facebook page and view the artist presentations if you joined us late. So thank you to all of the artists. Thank you to our panelists and to everyone that took the time today to join us on this live stream.